Hey everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live, the second creative challenge that we've done, part 1 of 4. It's all right, you don't have to write that down. So welcome back, Demas. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
We had a nice little 5-minute break.
Yeah.
And now we're back to it.
Yep.
So if you're watching live, hopefully you just caught the last hour where we went through some photo editing techniques, creating a cinemagraph, which is super cool.
Yep.
And then if you're watching this video on demand, check that out. It's on the YouTube channel. It's on Adobe APAC Live as well. But today we're going to do a creative challenge.
Yes, we are.
In which we would like to see you participate as well. So it's a little bit of an interactive thing. So you have essentially a week or till the end of the month to participate in the little tutorial that we're going to give you.
Yep.
And log into the chat and ask your questions while we're going here. And again, if you're watching the on-demand version, all the links to download everything will be down the bottom. And if you're watching live, there's actually a download template here. Wait, there, above you to download it, and you can follow along now.
Awesome.
But why don't you give us a little bit of a run through what we're going to do?
Yeah, so today on this week's creative challenge, so this is one of 3 challenges.
One of 3 challenges.
Yep. The first challenge I'm going to teach you is how to use the motion blur tool to accentuate and exaggerate your panning photos.
Yep.
When you take some panning photos of moving cars or moving trains or moving bikes or whatever you're taking photos of moving stuff.
Yep.
So I guess the first step to this would be if you're not using the photos that I've provided, the first step would be to go out there and shoot your own panning photos. It's a little bit tricky because you kind of need to make your shutter speed a little bit laggy, so
right,
1/4 of a second, 1/5 of a second, 1/6, around that time. You want to follow the car or follow the object that's moving.
What's the easiest thing? Is a car the easiest, or maybe a train on an outdoor platform or something like that?
I think what might make it even easier is if you use a tripod and then you make the top part swivel.
Oh, okay.
So it's always on that one axis.
Right.
That's easier. But if you if you don't have a tripod, you can just turn your body. It takes a bit of trial and error to get it right, but once you get it right, you'll know that there's a sharp car that's really cool.
Cool.
With a blurry background.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
right.
Should we get started?
Let's do it.
So we're gonna go into Lightroom. This is the photo that I've provided you guys with. So you can see it's actually quite tiny.
Yeah, it's really small.
The car is actually it's quite tiny. I shot this on my 12 to 24 mil, so it's quite wide angle. But it's at 24 mil. So if we zoom into the car, it's actually quite sharp, and the background's quite blurry. So I'm going to use this one. I like the color of the taxi, and it kind of works quite well. And I guess the first step is just to basically color grade in Lightroom, as you would with any other photo.
Yeah.
For this one, I'm going to start by enabling profile corrections to fix any lens distortions from your lens.
Right.
That's the first step. And then let's crop it first to 4:5. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty tight crop. But because the camera that I use is 40 megapixels.
Right, wow.
You can kind of crop in a little bit more.
I noticed when you zoomed in, there's still a lot of information on the taxi,
for sure.
And it's a huge photo, yeah.
I'm going to put the taxi on the bottom kind of rule of thirds line. And then I think, something like that is good. Maybe even crop it a little bit more. Oops. To get it more focused on the taxi. It's up to you, whatever way you want to crop it. But yeah, so I'm happy with that framing. The taxi looks quite nice and centered in the photo.
Cool. And just a reminder that if you're watching this, you can actually download the files and follow along.
Yes,
so literally this exact file. So you can follow it step by step if you want to figure it out.
Yep. Or if you want to watch it later and do it while you pause the video and stuff, you can also do it then. Perfect. Sweet. So now just basically playing with all the sliders. It's a bit dark, so I'm going to push up the light a little bit more. And I think what makes these photos stand out more is because there's all these lights in the background. You want to push those colors out even more. So pushing the highlights down brings out a lot more color. Pushing the shadow maybe down a little bit more. maybe down, yeah, and then...
Wait, push those highlights way down.
Yeah, so by pushing the highlights down, you kind of like bring back the color a lot more. Then blacks, you can kind of, I think you can push it up a little bit. I think vibrance and saturation is important because then you get more color. So pushing that up, pushing the clarity maybe up a little bit, dehaze a little bit. So it's like just minor tweaks here and there. But the aim of it is to try to push the colors out.
Right.
For when you use the motion blur, like it'll give a better effect for your motion blur later on when there's more color to play with.
Okay.
And then the HSL tab here. So again, we're just going to go through each slider. Like this is completely up to you, preference-wise, like what colors you like and what you don't like.
And depend on the photo as well, like how much of that color is in each photo and everything else.
I guess again, the beauty of the like Shinjuku, the area I took this in, is that like there's so much neon lights everywhere.
Yeah.
That it kind of gives a really cool background to these car shots. Yeah, basically just trying to push the colors out of this image a little bit more. So basically just pushing saturation up on all, or not most of these colors.
Hey, Scott G was asking what shutter speed was this pic taken with?
This photo was taken at 1/5 seconds. So it's not too slow, but it's slow enough to get a moving background. Yeah, so I'm just gonna keep tweaking here. It's just like a quick sort of tweaks on all the colors. So I like my blues a little bit more aqua, and my purples I can push that out a little bit more. Push it towards the magenta side, and then maybe let's just brighten some of these colors up as well. Yeah, I guess, yeah, just Lightroom is kind of like, you can take your time with it. Just use, like, make sure you like the colors that are in the photo. Yeah. Add a bit of split toning to give a little bit more blue to the image, because I like my photos more cooler.
Right.
So this adds to that a little bit. Sweet, we're almost there. Sharpen it a little bit more. So this is like just zooming through just settings after settings. But again, like the more practice, the more you know what you want to do with each setting.
Right. Right. So at home, people might, feel free to take a little bit more time.
Yep.
A little bit more trial and error.
Yep.
With them.
So I guess I'm pretty happy with this right now. We can always come back and tweak the colors later.
Okay.
Back in Lightroom or even in Photoshop. So if we look at the before and after, that's the before, and that's the after. Right. Is it? Yeah. So that's before, that's after. So just not that bit much of a difference, to be honest. It's just making it cooler and straightening it. All right. So we're gonna bring this into Photoshop. So we're gonna go edit in Adobe Photoshop. So you should open it up automatically.
Cool.
Because it's a big file. It's gonna take a bit of time.
You shoot in RAW, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So these files that you're gonna be downloading are 40 megabytes each.
Yeah, man. I uploaded them to Dropbox, tethering from my phone. So yeah, I know they're pretty big.
Sweet. So that's the file that you get, right? Yeah. First thing you're gonna duplicate the background layer.
Okay.
So right click and then duplicate. And then this is kind of where the magic happens. You're gonna go filter, blur, motion blur.
Okay.
That's motion blur. So the aim of it is to like blur out that whole background. So it's not, so it kind of just mushes into a bunch of colors.
Right.
So in motion blur, there's a few settings. There's angle and distance. So if you play with the angle, it changes the angle of the blur. But because this is a panning shot, we're gonna stick with 0.
Yeah.
Because
so we want it to be horizontal. Cool.
And distance, you can play with the distance to be like however long you want the pixels to be. You can even push it up to 2000 and make it all lines. For this photo, I kind of like it a little bit like that, like just so you can see a little bit but not fully. So I'm gonna keep it at 1000. So I'm gonna go okay. So then you get that difference, right? Like that's the motion blur.
Yeah.
So now you're going to put on a masking layer. And what a masking layer does is by painting black or white onto the masking layer, it reveals and shows the different parts of the photo.
Cool.
So if we click add masking layer down here, it creates that masking layer, and then you're going to paint that all black. So change the color to black, paint it, click it, and because that masking layer there is black, it shows everything now.
Everything's gone, yep.
And then we're going to go back and paint the motion blur back in. So we're going to change this back to white, and then make your brush size maybe a little bit bigger, especially for this top part, and maybe even bigger, like 1,000 like that, and you're just going to paint that in. So the top part you can kind of be a bit more loose.
Looks like you're smudging the canvas here.
The top part you can be more loose, and then the bottom part will get to more like details with the polygonal lasso tool and stuff. So I painted the top, that looks quite good. So now I'm going to zoom in and use the polygonal lasso, and we're going to just kind of cut out the taxi. So just follow along the lines, cutting it out.
As you're doing that, Festus was asking, is it as easy to play with colors in Photoshop instead of using Lightroom?
I think Lightroom is actually easier because you get more control over certain colors. I think Photoshop you're able to do it as well, but it's just not as in your face as Lightroom. Like all the settings,
right?
You gotta have to look for it and stuff like that. So yeah, I think Lightroom is actually better for color grading, for changing colors in your image. Yeah, so now I'm just gonna cut around this taxi. It doesn't have to be too perfect because it's like a motion blur, but I mean, you can take your time with it.
Can we use the magic tool for the car, magic wand?
I think you should be able to. I didn't try it, but I'm always done here. So it's all right. So yeah, the wheels are okay because you're gonna blur that out later. So basically, you can just chop the bottom off because it's not. Okay, so that you get taxi. You can kind of do one of two things now. You can inverse the selection and then keep painting, so it doesn't paint the selection.
Yep.
Or you can make this taxi a new layer on its own.
And just put it on top of everything?
Put it on top of everything.
Right.
So maybe let's do that for now. So layer via copy, right click it, and so you get this taxi. You want to do that on the background layer.
Right.
Yeah, so you get this
taxi. Otherwise you're going to
top.
end up with a blurry taxi.
Exactly. And then now we can keep painting because the taxi's already on top. So click your masking layer, maybe make your brush a little bit smaller this time, and then we can keep painting and not affect the taxi. So kind of like that. That's kind of cool.
The taxi is fast.
Taxi is going really fast. In the photo that I posted on my Instagram, the zebra cross, like if I motion blur that, it kind of turns into a big smudge.
Right.
So I'm gonna either keep it like this or bring in another photo where the zebra cross is more horizontal.
Okay.
So keep everything horizontal.
Yeah.
Like the theme.
Cool.
So we're gonna go back into Lightroom. We're gonna copy the settings of this, except for the crop, because we don't want to copy the crop.
Can you show us where you did the copying the settings?
So copy here on the bottom left with the three dots.
Great.
And just tick everything because you're going to copy everything except for the crop because we cropped it so much we don't want to crop the other one.
Okay.
So copy and then get that other photo, which is this one. That's the one that's already been edited. So this is the one unedited, and paste. So the button on the next to the copy. So you get sort of a similar edit. You can tweak it as well, but I'm just gonna leave it as is, and I'm gonna also edit this in Photoshop.
This is obviously shot a different photo, but shot in the same place, in the same area. So you got similar lighting, same camera, that sort of stuff. Probably helps.
Yeah, I knew that I was gonna put zebra cross underneath.
Oh, you did. You knew.
So I did that on purpose.
This comes back to that planning stuff we were talking about, like planning your shots and planning what you want to do.
So once it's opened, we're just going to select the bottom half just by dragging a box. Copy, Control V, and then we're going to paste it in here. So it looks a bit funny at the moment because we need to position it in place. But we're just going to retransform, Control or Command T, and free transform that below the car. And basically just position it into place. I mean, the beauty of having the car on its own layer is that I mean, it's already going to be at the top all the time.
It's already done.
I'm going to stretch it a bit more. Basically, I want to keep this as horizontal as possible. And you don't have to just tweak it like that. You can also distort by pushing like different angles up. And then you can also warp. So you can, if you can see that little warp on the road, you can actually bring the warpiness down. So that kind of straightens the photo a little bit more. Sweet. So I'm happy with that. Now we just have to blend it in together with the other photo. And again, we're going to use a masking layer for that. But before that, I'm going to also motion blur this layer.
Okay.
So filter, blur, motion blur. Where's motion blur? And then you should get like the same blur. Yeah. So it's, you get that sort of speed blurring through the, sweet. And then I guess the final step is to mask this out. So get a masking layer and then start painting black on top. So we're gonna paint the black. And so just so that that zebra cross kind of fades out in the back. And you get that shadow of the taxi back below it.
Yeah, because otherwise it was floating a little bit on top, wasn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, so you get the taxi back, the shadow. Yeah. Cool. That's looking not bad. And then maybe I can even paint more white in here. Sweet. So that's what you get.
Awesome.
Then what we can do is save it. Oh, wait. Because the edges of the taxi are a bit too sharp, we can, and you can see that the masking is not very good. You can see there. You can sort of blur that even more by getting the blur tool and then just blurring the edges, like just rubbing out the edges of the taxi. So it blends in with the background a lot more. There you go.
Nice.
Sweet. So you get that, and then now you just have to click save. And by clicking save, it creates a new file in Lightroom, and it automatically opens it for you.
Great.
The colors are a bit muted for me, so I'm going to bring that out again even more. So I'm going to push up the contrast, push out the vibrance. So then now, so you can see a lot more color. Push up the saturation, push up the shadows. There we go. And I think I want to make the zebra cross a bit darker. So I'm going to bring like a graduated filter from the bottom, pull it up, and then just push that exposure way down, and saturation down as well. So yeah, so you get like a more crispy looking zebra cross.
The crispiest.
The crispiest zebra cross. So yeah, and then I guess the last thing that you want to do is probably add a vignette to bring the focus more towards the taxi. So scroll down here all the way to effects, and then bring that vignette in and feather it out, make it rounder, and then push that midpoint in.
Makes a big difference, doesn't it, that vignette right at the end?
I think it does, yeah. So that's without it, and that's with it. Like it kind of just gives that more drawing in effect on it. So yeah, that's about it. You can do this technique for lots of different things, and not just painting shots. You can, like, you've probably seen this one as well on my Instagram, where I use exactly the same technique on this skyline photo, where I blurred it vertically, and then I masked out the different buildings.
And you did the same technique where you went back in and masked it, and you just painted back in what you wanted to not be blurry, or what you wanted to be blurry, whichever way you want to do it.
So you can make the selection more boxy as well, so it's like more lines rather than more freeform.
Yeah, cool.
So make your selection boxy and then just paint it in.
Cool.
So yeah, you can get super creative with the motion blur tool for sure. But yeah, so here was the before. Oh wait, no, where's the before? Here's the before. I'm gonna reset it just to show what it was before, and then we got to here at the end.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty wild. Thank you very much. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. Got one question for Festus. Did saving it back to Lightroom bring the file in with the layers, or is it all merged into one?
Yeah, so it creates a TIFF file.
Yeah.
So if you want to edit it again, like you want to make more tweaks to that Photoshop file, it's still in layers.
Right. Okay.
So if you save it again, it kind of resets that second Lightroom stage that you did. So what you want to do is you want to copy all the settings first, copy it, and then you want to
including crop this time.
Yep. Edit in Photoshop. So you edit the original.
Right.
And then it opens back up. So it's the same file. And once you save it, you paste it in again.
Awesome.
So yeah, so that's the step if you want to keep editing your Photoshop file.
Great. Excellent. All right. Can we bring up where people can submit?
Sure. So this is the form that you can submit. So upload the photo, enter a caption, add your Adobe ID email, your name, and your website to submit a portfolio review.
Yeah, so if you have some other, like Instagram feed or something that you want Demas to have a look at, if we have time, we'll do that at the same time.
Yep.
And if you don't want to fill in this form, that's totally cool. If you're on Instagram, they can also use the hashtag.
Yep, so you use the hashtag Adobe Live.
Yep.
And also tag me at Demas in the caption and also in the photo as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, and at the end of the 4 weeks, we'll review all 3 weekly creative challenges.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about your edits.
Yeah, we'll talk through it all, and obviously if you struggle with any of the steps, we can try and answer questions as well. But yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and feel free to use the files that are provided for you at the link. So again, that is download here button if you're watching live. If you're watching on YouTube, it's down there. And just click the link and have a go. If you can only do one, that's great. If you can do all 3, fantastic. But we'll be back next week with another creative challenge with Demas.
Awesome.
Cool.
See you guys next week.
See you guys.